Hey, here, you autism fans. It's 3:01 on Saturday. I think it's June 30th, and I'm going to do a Facebook Live because my awesome half isn't here this weekend. She's visiting her parents and a friend of hers, Lynn, in Missouri. But I figured I'd at least do a Facebook Live where the Aspie mark interviews the NT mark. And I had just a few short questions that I thought I'd get into about the Aspie mark, wondering how it is being an NT, so to speak. And so I just figured I'd go through the questions. And if you guys had questions, you can post them there on right here in our comment section, and I can get Aspie Mark can ask the NT Mark those questions. And anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. Hi, I'm Aspie Mark, and I'm going to ask the NT Mark a few questions about what it's like to be an NT. First question is, what one thing has improved your life the most since losing your Asperger's syndrome? All right, that is a very good question, and truthfully, I think it's one that most people who are contemplating losing their autism really want to know. And to be honest and straightforward, the one biggest thing that's changed my life so much is being able to read people. And that is so important because, oh, and by the way, that was an excellent question. But reading people is so important because as an Aspie, and you'll remember this, Aspie Mark, people could be so unpredictable because you'd walk up to them and you would never know how any interaction might go, and you would always be surprised if it took a turn that you didn't expect. And so being able to read people now lets me know if people like me, if people don't like me. It lets me know if people are approachable or not approachable, because as an Aspie, and you'll remember this, you just walked up to somebody, started talking, and you never knew how they were going to be. And I remember when I was you, that really caused me a lot of trouble sometimes because I never know if I was right in the middle of a tense moment for somebody. And that just made my life more difficult. But see, now I can see possible tense moments. I remember social interactions well. So if later on, say a month later, I walk up to someone at work and they've been stressed out because of inventory or having just dealt with a guest, I can see it on their face now. And when I was you, I so remember not ever noticing those things on their face. No, I didn't notice stress. I didn't notice sadness. I didn't notice any of that kind of stuff. And so the one definitely, the one biggest thing is being able to read other people. Now, reading other people is more than just seeing facial expressions. And I've been in, and we've talked about that in other Facebook Lives. But it's important to know that reading people is more complex than just reading people. And I won't get into it here, but being able to see what's on a person's face, to tell their muscle this still I find bizarre. My mind still notices the tension in people's muscles and lets me know if they're stressed out or if they're angry. And not just in their face, but in their upper bodies. I notice their stance now, all that kind of stuff. And I see all that, and it's made my life so much easier because I don't walk into minefields of emotion, so to speak, that I didn't know when I was you was there. So that would definitely be the one biggest thing, and the why. All right. Well, second question. Has life become easier or more difficult for you since becoming an NT, and why? Okay, definitely easier. And I talked about that a little bit in the answer to the last question. But not only has it become easier, but the reason that it has become easier is because, well, as the first question said, I can read people much better, and I don't walk into situations without having an idea of what's going on. But it's not just that. Verbal communication is much easier because I'm getting all kinds of implied meanings that someone has not explicitly stated. Not only that, another thing that's made life much easier, reading comprehension. I don't have to read things over and over and over and over again just to get the basic meaning. I had such trouble with that when I was you, and that just made school incredibly difficult. Now, taking something like organic chemistry or calculus, that really, not being able to comprehend what I read wasted hours of my time. And so I couldn't grasp the concepts in enough time to be able to learn them well enough for tests. So that being able to read and understand and comprehend what I read has made things much easier, along with reading people. But not only that, what's made life easier is knowing more than anything now that I'm no longer an outsider to others. And what I mean by that is what's made life easier for me and has given what feels like given me meaning is that I can see people's reactions to me. And because I can now, that was so difficult when I was you, but because I can now, I feel like I belong to a group because I see when people like me. Now, I also see when people don't like me, but I don't usually belong to those groups. I mean, why would you? So that, for me, has been one of the biggest things, is because now I don't feel like an outsider. And hey, Talitha, Talitha, a friend of mine in Tulsa, she just joined. And I would say those are the three things. But life has definitely become much easier. And so I couldn't go back to being an Aspie now. But more than anything, I wouldn't want to, because life is so much better. You know, there's another thing too, and that is in this next question. And Aspie Mark, I'll let you get to that. Okay. All right, NT Mark. Here's another question for you. You talk about emotions coming online for you. Well, give a couple examples, and what meaning does that hold for you? Okay, that is an excellent question, because this has made life more fun. When I was you, hi to Roxy, when I was still an Aspie, my emotional vocabulary, I usually only felt one of two things. I was either angry or I was frustrated. Happiness, I remember one time, and that was quitting a job I previously had right before I went to Whole Foods. And that was the only time I actually danced after quitting a job. So that I remember being happy. But because when I was an Aspie, those are the only two things that I regularly felt that I could actually identify. So happiness, sadness, depression, that kind of thing. If there was another emotion, a third emotion, that would be fear. And I had lots and lots of that, and I've worked really hard on getting rid of it. But then the recovery from the autism has helped that too. But now, starting with the GAPS diet, a whole range of emotions started to come online. And then when we started the Medical Mediums detox diet, even more have come out. It has added a third dimension to life. Instead of life feeling like a cartoon, a black and white cartoon, it's now like watching almost a 3D movie on a huge screen, because the emotions actually, I'll say it, to me now, I think when I was in Aspie, I probably would have denied this and thought it was complete BS, but now emotions are the meaning of life. Not entirely, but a good example is this. I was watching one of my favorite British shows on Amazon, and it's set in the 1790s, and one of the women on there, she's in her late 20s maybe, and she had a fiance who's a doctor. Well, he had just come back from being a prisoner of war in France during the French Revolution. And so he had seen a lot of atrocities committed by French soldiers, and that really, he had PTSD, what we would call PTSD now. Well, his fiance, Caroline, she didn't understand what he was going through, and he wouldn't talk about it. And so finally, a friend of his told him, look, you really need to sit down with her and explain. She was under the impression that he was falling out of love with her. And so she was worried that as they sat down, he was going to tell her, I'm no longer in love with you and I don't want to be married anymore. Well, he sat down and he told her what was going on, and he asked her if she would bear with him for a few more weeks before they got married. And seeing her face light up, it kind of choked me up, and still does. But the actress who played her, she played that part so well. I actually felt happy for her and would have given her a hug, because she was pleasantly surprised to only find out that he had PTSD, or he was still dealing with all the emotions of being a prisoner of war. But she was so happy. That moved me. As an Aspie, that never wouldn't have even budged me a half an inch. But now I watch this show and I read fiction. I never used to read fiction. I didn't care about fiction. Now I get fiction. It's the emotions. It's the being jerked around a little bit by the heartstrings. Sometimes you'll hear that. And I love this existence now, because there's a whole nother dimension that gives meaning to so much that I would never want to give up my NT existence ever again for any reason. So I think that answers that question. And hey, Lisa Amber, ask me, Mark, do you have any other questions you want to ask? All right. Well, I do have a fourth question here. What would you say to those people who are hoping to either improve autism symptoms or lose autism altogether? Okay. Well, that's an excellent question. I would say that if you hear from the medical establishment, oh, autism can't be healed, or you hear from adults with autism, and I've heard this more from them than anyone else, oh, my autism makes me who I am. I don't need to be healed. I don't need a cure. Okay, that's fine. But if you hear that from them, know that you make your own decisions and you make up your own mind, right? And if you look into it, I know other people who are healing their kids and their loved ones from autism. So don't fall into the belief that nothing can be done, because it can be. I am an excellent example of an adult in his late 40s. I'll be 50 in November. I started this when I was 40, the GAPS diet, when I was 44, was on it for 4.5 years. Then we started the medical medium diet. My autism is definitely gone. And I have heard other people say, well, you know, I've heard it said that as you get older, autism is much more difficult to heal. Well, I don't believe that, and neither should you. There is a way to at least improve your loved one's autism symptoms, if not get rid of them altogether. So if you want to start this, talk to me, talk to Michelle. If you want to start on the GAPS diet or the medical medium diet, talk to us, and we'll be more than happy to coach you onto the diet and through it as far as you need to go. But I guarantee you that if you look for a solution to what you think of is a problem for you, you'll find it. And my wife and I did exactly the same thing. She's improving her health now because we've stayed on these diets and we've looked for the solutions to what we thought were problems for us. Don't let anyone tell you that it can't be done. That's complete BS. While there may be some people who cannot heal from autism, I don't know, but I did, and I know other mothers and fathers who are healing their kids from autism. So it can be done. Just keep an open mind and ask people like me and Michelle who have done it, and we can help you through it. Anyway, that's the end of our questions. Aspie, Mark, thank you very much for the questions, and we'll get back to you guys next week. Have a good day. Bye-bye.